Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayeshta bandreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 23rd day of December 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in the fourth canto, the creation of the fourth order. Text, chapter 28, Puranjan becomes a woman in the next life. Text number 40. Savyapakatayatmanam Jatirik Tatayatmani Vidbam Swapna Hivamarsha Sakshinam Viraramaha Savyapakatayatmanam Vatiriktatayatmani Vidvan Swapnahi Bhamarsha Sakshinam Viraramaha Savyapakatayatmanam Atmanam Vatiriktatayatmani Vidvan Swapnahi Bhamarsha Sakshinam Viraramaha Savyapakatayatmanam Vatiriktatayatmani Vidvan Swapnahi Bhamarsha Sakshinam Viraramaha Savyapakatayatmanam Vatiriktatayatmani Vidvan Swapnahi Bhamarsha Sakshinam Viraramaha Savyapakatayatmanam Vatiriktatayatmani Vidvan Swapnahi Bhamarsha Sakshinam Viraramaha. No? Go ahead, go on. Savyapakatayatmanam Vatiriktatayatmani Vidvan Swapnahi Bhamarsha Sakshinam Viraramaha. Word by words. Saha King Malayadvaja Vyapakataya, by all pervasiveness. Atmanam, the super soul. Vyatiriktataya, by differentiation. Atmani, in his own self. Vidvan, perfectly educated. Swapne, in a dream. Eva, like. Amarsha, of the liberation. Sakshinam, the witness. Virarama, became indifferent. Ha, certainly. Translation. King Malayadvaja attained perfect knowledge by being able to distinguish the super soul from the individual soul. The individual soul is localized, whereas the super soul is all-pervasive. He, Malayadvaja, became perfect in knowledge that the material body is not the soul, but that the soul is the witness of the material body. Purport. The conditioned soul is often frustrated in trying to understand the distinctions between the material body, the super soul, and the individual soul. There are two types of Mayavadi philosophers, the followers of the Buddhist philosophy and the followers of the Shankara philosophy. The followers of Buddha do not recognize that there is anything beyond the body. The followers of Shankara conclude that there is no separate existence of the Paramatma, the super soul. The Shankarites believe that the individual soul is identical with the Paramatma in the ultimate analysis. But the Vaishnava philosopher, who is perfect in knowledge, knows that the body is made of the external energy and that the super soul, the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is sitting with the individual soul and is distinct from him. As Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 13.3. Now when I read the translation, don't blanch because this is the old translation. I'm going to give the correct translation. Also you say, Chaitra chapi mam vidhi Sarva Chaitreshu Bharata Chaitra Chaitragyayo Jnanam Yatta Jnanam Matang Mama. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower, is called knowledge. That is my opinion. The body is taken to be the field, and the individual soul is taken to be the worker in that field. Yet there is another, who is known as the supersoul, who along with the individual soul simply witnesses. The individual soul works and enjoys the fruits of the body, whereas the supersoul simply witnesses the activities of the individual soul, but does not enjoy the fruits of those activities. The supersoul is present in every field of activity, whereas the individual soul is present in his one localized body. King Malayadvaja attained this perfection of knowledge and was able to distinguish between the soul and the supersoul, and the soul and the material body. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So how long did it take him to attain this vision? 36,000 years. 100 years of the demigods, and their years are 360 times as long as ours. So this is a very important realization of King Malayadvaja, and it's one that is more or less, spoken of right at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, at least the part about the soul being the witness or being the knower of the body and being different from the body. So this is like basic information. Without understanding that the soul is eternal and the body is temporary, one cannot separate the interests of the soul from the interests of the body, which is essential to begin one's spiritual life. Right now, in the conditioned state, the living entity takes the desires of the body, the impulses of the body, the pains and pleasures of the body, to be himself, to be his that's the content of his life. That's called conditioned life. Completely ignorant of even the existence of the soul, whatever body you happen to be in. And don't forget, there's 8,400,000 species, so we're not even talking human bodies. Every body that soul is put into due to previous work, you identify with that. If you're in the insect body, wow, I can fly, But it's basically the eating, sleeping, mating, and defending activities are going on with all kinds of varieties and fearing. So, and then when you finally get to the human body, you're taking with you all of those lives of misidentification. So naturally, unless you have another input of knowledge from Krishna through the Vedas, through the Shastra, through your parents, you're going to immediately identify and continue to identify with this particular body that we're in. So, all of us in this room grew up with that misidentification, and it takes a lot. It takes a steady diet of transcendental knowledge. That's why it is said that we have to attend these classes regularly. We should be studying regularly. And if you're acting on the basis of the soul being different from the body, in other words, you're acting, doing spiritual activities, even though they may be done with the material senses, then that knowledge gradually becomes second nature to you. And in addition to that, of course, in the Krishna consciousness movement, in Vaishnava circles, you're understanding it's not just a question of you being different from the body, being a soul, being eternal, but you're part and parcel of the eternal soul. And there's a whole other world, spiritual world, where there is no material bodies, and there's no, what Prabhupada famously dubbed the inebrieties. He gave this word a completely new meaning. He sometimes did that. But these are all of they try to translate that or try to give the equivalent negativities, the downside, the pains, the suffering, all of that is inebrieties. So in Vaikuntha, the very name of the world, free from all anxiety. Well, what causes the anxiety? What causes the anxiety is the sharp distinction between the nature of the body and the true nature of the soul. We as souls are eternal. We're full of knowledge, we're full of bliss. That's our actual nature. But all of that has been covered now and compromised by our insistence of separating ourselves from Krishna and becoming absorbed in this material world and getting, as a result, a series of material bodies which we identify with, which are anything but Satchidananda. The body is a symbol of ignorance and suffering and temporary nature, isn't it? Everyone knows that. So here you have the soul, who by nature, deep within ourselves, although we forgot, but we want to be eternal, we want to have unlimited happiness, and we want to know, unlimited things, but we can't in this restricted condition. So that's the source of all this anxiety and suffering that we go through in every single body, what to speak of the human body, where you can actually imagine and understand. I mean, COVID is bad enough, but then you have all of the fears and anxieties of what's going to happen, and the memories of all those, friends of yours or relatives or people, loved ones who died, So that causes that much more misery over and above the actual miserable situation. The lower animals, what to speak of the plants, they don't suffer as much. They're not contemplating, future suffering. They're certainly not remembering past suffering. They may be going through some immediate suffering, but it's a different experience. So human life, which is the one chance in all these species to understand this basic knowledge and to begin to live on the basis of knowledge, also carries with it much more suffering and anxiety and than the other different species of life. So King Malayadrija, obviously he lived in a much different time. I mean, it's an allegory, but clearly it's from a much earlier time when people could live 100,000 years, then you can meditate for 36,000 years. So he's become realized now. Not only has he realized the soul, but he's realized the super soul as well, and the difference between the soul and the super soul. And this is what Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport here, because it's not enough. It's certainly not enough just to know that there's a soul that's eternal, different from the body. That's good. That's a good first step. But if that's the limit of your knowledge, you really can't separate the soul from the body. You're not going to get liberation just from that knowledge. Prabhupada describes the different kinds of impersonalists here. It's a different kind of Mayavadis, the Buddhists, which typically ultimately think that the void is reality. In other words, the lack of existence. Our problem is in being involved in the relativities of this world. So try to void everything out. Stop the thoughts, and there's no Brahman there, but the bliss is just annihilating everything and stopping all this suffering. That's the idea. And the Mayavadis, those who want mukti, basically have the same motive. They may talk of Brahmananda, but that Brahmananda is basically the cessation of all of the misery of this life. No more death, no more birth, no more old age, no more disease. It's all no, no, no. Well, what are you going to do? Nothing. I'm just going to be in the Brahman, and I'm going to think I am that I am, and exist like that, free of all of these horrible things. But that's not the nature of the soul. The soul is by nature active. And Prabhupada says it very logically. If he's so active in the conditioned life, then that's his nature to be active. It's the quality. It's the question of the quality of the activities that have to be reformed. And Krishna's, what's going on in the spiritual world, we read in the Krishna book and the 10th canto and so many writings of the Goswamis. So many activities. Every day is packed with things. In fact, when you read the Govinda Lilamrita, which is more or less daily activities of Krishna, it doesn't stop at night either. He doesn't get much rest. Comes home, taking care of his mother, and the cows are put away, and all these things, and then he takes rest. And as soon as all the lights are out, he gets up and goes out and meets the gopis. Then early in the morning, there's a whole emergency because Radha and Krishna don't want to go home, and birds are reminding him, you got to get back into bed before Yashoda wakes up and looks for you. So finally he just makes it back there and puts his head on his bed, and then she comes to wake him up for the day's activity. So it's all Leela, he doesn't suffer from lack of sleep, as we would. But where is there any just stasis? There's no nirvana, per se. Nirvana means finished. This is a quote from Prabhupada. And finished. Everything finished. No activities, no body, no thoughts, no feelings, no nothing, just as if you would be happy with that. But that's artificial. So both the Buddhists and the Mayavadis, they have a different view. There's something out there. It's not void. It's Brahman. Thou art that. Glenn, you are that. You're Brahman. So there's a complete conflation of the individual Brahman with the supreme Brahman. That's why we have this term para Brahman. Prabhupada would always, you'd read his books, you'd read the purports, distinguishing Brahman and para Brahman. I remember one of the Sanskrit phrases you learned, like I learned anyway when I joined, is Aham Brahmasmi. I'm pure spirit, which is fine, as long as you understand there's Brahman has individual Brahman and there's supreme Brahman. But we ourselves are spirit. So we're Christian. We are equivalent or equal to Krishna in quality. He's pure spirit, so are we. But he is infinite. And the difference here is described here. Now we're talking about the soul and the super soul. Now, the Vijay Prabhu quoted that verse, Upadrashta anamanta cha bhakta bhakta maheshwara. The soul is the overseer. He's watching everything. This comes out right in the introduction. Prabhupada talks about this. How somehow this stuck in my mind. Maybe because it says we should not forget this. We should always forget that there's a super soul in every body, and he's watching everything. He knows everything. Knows what we're thinking, knows what we're doing, knows what we're planning, knows what we've done. That's a heavy concept. That you can't hide anything. Nothing. And really remembering that Krishna is with you at all moments, that he's watching, is a prerequisite to advancing in devotional service. Because the whole idea in conditioned life is you're forgetting. And therefore you feel free to do all kinds of nonsense. Because you forget that Krishna is watching everything. And that they're taking down, and that there's going to be a price to pay for it. So the illusion is, well, I'm free. I can do what I want. It's a huge illusion because, just on the material level, you can see that that's ridiculous. You can eat as much as you want, you can drink as much as you want, you can have as much sex as you want. And of course, very quickly, you get the results of that. Even you don't have to be a transcendentalist to realize that. The hedonism is a suicidal philosophy. It causes great suffering even in this life, what to speak of the next life. So, but the idea, the motive of hedonism is ultimately spiritual. You want to enjoy unlimitedly, but you make the great mistake of trying to do it through the medium of these fragile little senses and body. And as you get older, the bill comes due. If you're very lascivious and you're uncontrolled in your youth, then you can easily do damage to yourself. And nowadays it's even worse, and it comes quicker. These drugs. When I was a kid, in 1968, I was 21 years old. So I was right in the middle of the Lower East Side, 2 blocks from Tompkins Square Park. I lived there for a year, going to NYU, which is a couple of blocks east of that. And so I'm right in the middle of the whole drug culture. So luckily I didn't get too much into it, but I was smoking every day, marijuana. I had my stash and everything. But it wasn't the marijuana we have today. It was a lot weaker. It smelled different. Now it's legal. If you live in an apartment, sometimes okay, they smell it. It's like a grocer's smell. But it had its effect. But it's much worse today. And all these other drugs that they have, the opioids and the meth and the cocaine and all these different things, horrible. At first, it seems like, oh, this is what everyone's doing. This is how you can really enjoy, And then you're stuck with your damaged brain is what you're doing. Damaged brain for the rest of your life. It's horrific what's going on out there. And now, the guys who are selling this, they're putting in heavy fentanyl, which is 100 times worse than heroin. Little pills. You don't have to bother burning anything. I read about this. And the kids take it and boom, they die. Sometimes overdose. It's so powerful. So why is that? Why is that still going on? Why do people search for that? Because life is so difficult, and your friends are doing it, and all kinds of reasons. You don't want to miss out, fear of missing out, who knows. But you get entangled in this material world, and you experience extreme suffering. What to speak of the next life? So Krishna consciousness is the answer to all this. Prabhupada even mentioned this in that conversation. Some of you, he's on an airplane, and sometimes he would look at Time magazine. Right on the cover, his famous cover, crime, why and what to do. In the 70s, there was a big crime wave in America, more than even today. We're not sure why it is, I didn't read, but that it was suddenly there's a lot of crime going on. So they were asking crime, why and what to do. So Prabhupada, then he asked to have a conversation with the mayor. Well, they couldn't get the mayor, he was in Chicago. But he got a representative of the police department, somebody who came to see Prabhupada. Because the movement was getting big, and here's, a lot of people chanting on the streets. We had a presence. And anyway, so here's the leader. So Prabhupada said, we can solve it for you. Just like these boys and girls. They were also involved in drugs, especially focused on that. The drug crisis, and we can solve that. They were, many of them, involved in it, but they've all given it up. See how happy they are? So he had some evidence. And his program was, just give us a nice building, and we'll hold kirtan there, and feasting. The basic principle of Krishna consciousness. And which is so powerful. Of course, they didn't do it, but it's actually, it actually works. Why? Because it immediately, this is the great treasure that Lord Chaitanya came to give. Immediate immersion in the highest, activity that the soul can perform. Glorifying the Lord, mind, body, and words, dancing, chanting, of this Hare Krishna mantra, which is Maha Mantra. You know what the Kali Santaran Upanishad says? It says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Namnam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, Natak Purataropaya, Sava Vedeshu Drishite. First of all, what's the name of the Upanishad? That which will deliver you from the Kali Yuga. Kali Santaran is completely delivered. So I don't know if there's more to this Upanishad. Maybe that's the whole Upanishad. But it's certainly sufficient. So it says this Hare Krishna mantra, and it gives the mantra. It says, Iti, thus, these 16 names, Shodashakanam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, destroy all of the impurities and difficulties of Kali Yuga for whoever takes it up. You can search throughout all the Vedas. You will not find a more efficient and powerful means of counteracting the ills of this age than this chanting of this holy name. So the whole, Lord Chaitanya's movement is based on, the Vedas. So, but Lord Chaitanya manifests this. I mean, the Hare Krishna mantra is going on and being chanted, like Haridas Thakur and Bilva Mangal Thakur. He predated Lord Chaitanya for many years. And so there were Vaishnavas, but the mass chanting and the mass movement and the revolution that Lord Chaitanya came was unique, and that's what we're experiencing today. So all of this realization that took Malayadvaja 36,000 years to achieve is available to us, even though we're Kiratat, Huranat, Pulinda, Pulkisha. This verse is important. This is a list of outliers, those who are outside the Vedic culture, who are outside India. And are categorized as papayonis, more or less, sinful birth. And others, in other words, this isn't a complete list, he says. He says, Yenyecha papa yadapasha yashaya shudyanti tasmai prabhavishnabe namaha. It's all a question of purification. These lists that he gives, and Prabhupada names some of them, these are the Germans, these are the Mongolians, and so forth like that, outside of India. They can also be purified if they take shelter of someone who's taken shelter of Vishnu. These are prayers of Shukadev before he starts answering Parikka's questions. Very nice prayers. So, this is very encouraging. The Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya predicted that his name would be glorified throughout the world, the earth, not just India. But no one could say, how is that going to happen? These outliers. Even in India, you find resistance to it, and people take it, but it's what to speak of, how they're going to take it, in America, in New York. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta insisted that they go to the West, so they went to Britain, but they really didn't succeed, his first representatives. But Prabhupada, as taking on the rhinoceros, hunting the rhinoceros. So, well, look, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to go all the way to New York and really try. And he found he found so many outliers, didn't know anything about Vedic culture, ignorant of everything. But they had the good quality of first searching, and this was one of the things that's sometimes not emphasized. What was happening during those 60s? There was a big revolution in consciousness because of the drugs, especially LSD. It was shaking people's feelings of what they knew about reality, and giving them a glimpse or a hint of some kind of thing of the divine, of something beyond. It was incoherent, meaning that it was not clear, and without guidance, it didn't really go anywhere, and it ultimately went into different drugs and so forth. But it did. Those who were able to, maintain their sanity to some degree, and also come in contact with the genuine philosophy of Krishna consciousness and with the pure practitioner, Srila Prabhupada, his presence, were receptive to the message, especially when it's not just philosophy, when it's a chanting also. Prabhupada always had, the kirtan, an hour kirtan, he's sitting there chanting, and they're going at it in that little storefront. Then the lecture comes, and people started to understand. Many people would get up and leave after the kirtan. They came for the kirtan, that's what, But then they understood, well, after the talk there's going to be some prasadam, so maybe I should stay. That was a big draw. But the point is, he had an audience and people who were ready to hear and practice, and so the purification could take place. The whole thing is purification. So Malliyadraja has come to the point of understanding these three elements: the soul, the super soul, and the body, and the difference between them and how they function. Now Prabhupada quotes from this verse from the 13th chapter, Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. A very important chapter. The Bhagavad Gita kind of unfolds in such a way that at a certain point you say, well, that the Bhagavad Gita is over. In the 10th chapter, right after Krishna speaks these four essential verses, we should kind of, if you're interested in learning verses, but you're just starting out, or this is a good place to start. 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, where Krishna more or less says, I'm God. I'm the source of everything. Those who understand it worship me with all their hearts. How do they do it? By putting their consciousness on me and meeting with others and glorifying me, and enjoying in this way spiritual pleasure. And those who do that, I give them more intelligence from within as the super soul, as how they can come to me. And out of my compassion for them, I destroy all their ignorance with the shining lamp of knowledge. Now after that, what does Arjuna do? He glorifies Krishna. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. You are the supreme Brahman. We're talking about Brahman here. The supreme abode and purifier. You are the supreme personality of Godhead. I accept this. First he says, it's not just me saying it. Narada says it. Asita Devala Vyas. He quotes others. It's confirmed. And I accept everything you say. Sarvameta Mritam Manya is truth. So he says, all right, get on the chariot. Let's go fight. If you accept that and my word, But then he said, no. Please tell me how I can see you in this world through your glories, the vibhutis. Like I am the ocean of bodies of water. I am the shark, a fish, and like that. There's a whole list. So Prabhupada says in the purport there, although it may be a little unclear, but what he says, it appears from this question that Arjuna is dissatisfied with his realization. In other words, he's come to the point of accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything is true. Okay, so I'm saying fight, now fight. But no, he's asking these questions for us. In other words, we need to see the glories of Krishna and understand, this is glorious thing, this is a manifestation of the power of God. And this is one of the reasons why after the 12th chapter, there's more Gita, right? 12th chapter is all about Bhakti. It's only 20 verses. And it ends with the description of the pure devotee, and he answers in no uncertain terms that it's not impersonalism that's the supreme. It's I am the supreme, and I'll deliver you and everything. So are we done? 12th chapter? No. Now we got 6 more chapters, and it's all because we need to have these things reiterated, and he's exploring themes now that he touched on earlier. Second chapter, he certainly dealt with the individual soul and the body and all of these different things. But now he's increasing that, and he talks about the super soul, which culminates in the 15th chapter. I am that super soul. I am the person, the yoga, the supreme person. In other words, we need repetition, reiteration, see it from a different little angle, more and more, so that it'll get into our soft noggins, or hard noggins. So this verse is key, and the one before that, Arjuna wanted to know the answer to 6 questions. What is the soul? What is this body? What is Purusha and Prakriti? Prakriti meaning in this case the material energy, dead, and the Purusha being the soul, who is also Prakriti, but is acting like an enjoyer, and this is called Purusha. What is the Chaitra and the Chaitagya? It's interesting that they describe this body as a field of activity. You would think, well, I've got a larger field of activity, but actually we experience this larger field through the senses of the body. So actually we're experiencing everything through the medium of the body. So you can see the body is the field of activity, Chaitra, and the Chaitagya. So Krishna answers that first question. This body is the field, and the knower of the field is called the Chaitagya, or the soul. But then he says, I'm also the knower in the field. You see, Chaitragam chapi mam vidhi, the knower of the field, Chaitagya, mam, I am, in all bodies. We're the knower of this one body, but he's the knower in all bodies. And one who knows the field and the knower of the field, or we might say the field and the knowers of the field, that one, you really have knowledge. And this is explained, of course, in the purport in the Bhagavad Gita, very important. Because now, when we read this, we study it, and we're living in Krishna consciousness, then we can try to understand, as we go through our daily life, that we're now reading the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The 5th chapter also talks about being in such a state of awareness that you understand, I'm not really doing anything. Right? Glenn was there last night. We were starting the 5th chapter, get into that. And this is the famous inaction in action. We do so many things, right? But we're not really doing anything in the sense of performing activity that will produce a reaction. Either good or so-called good or so-called bad. Because we realize everything I'm doing, this is how it should be, is impelled by a higher authority. Just like Arjuna, he felt, I don't want to be responsible for killing all these men. The women will become unprotected. Varnasanka will continue. There won't be any offering to the Pitris, and it's all on me. I'd rather go to the forest. So he's thinking of it in terms of his own relative interest, right? But so he's taking the role, like Krishna's influence, of the conditioned soul of every man, just like we're reading Puranjan. Every person, is in this predicament. So, but if you understand through the philosophy, through hearing and practicing, that what I'm doing is simply following the instructions that are coming down from Krishna through the Shastra, through the Guru, through the sadhus, for what I should be doing for my own good and to further Krishna, for the mission of Krishna consciousness. So I'm not responsible. Prabhupada also often gave the example of the soldier. You're fighting a good war. Okay, World War II. So you're on a battlefield and you're ordered to kill this and kill this person, do all these things. And if you do it right, the more people you kill, you get medals for heroism and things. You come back home, you have an argument with someone, you kill someone, one man, you're arrested, you can be tried and hanged. Because the key difference is, on the battlefield, you're doing it on the basis of authority. You're not doing it for yourself. You're simply, the agent. But nimitta matram, Baba Savyasat. But at home, you're doing it by your own will. So our problem is that we've given up following Krishna's will, Krishna's desire, and we're simply following the inputs or the impulses of our own conditioned mind, of lust, anger, greed, of this out of control senses, the thing, which is not us. And so we're entangled. Because as soon as we act like that, then there's a reaction. We may act according to the Vedas and therefore get a so-called good reaction, but it's still based on our own desire, our own interest. And so, we're in a prison with golden bars in the heavenly planets. But ultimately you die, you come back down here, you come back to the world of death. That's in the 9th chapter. So the only way out is to reverse how we came in. This comes in the 11th canto, this famous verse. You know this verse. Bayam dvatiya bandavesha taksyari sharapeta sivaparhiyo asmati. What's the source of the fear? The fear is we've artificially forgotten our connection with Krishna. So we've completely forgot that. So now we're absorbed in this material energy as our field of enjoyment and work and all of these different things. But this causes great fear because our powers are very limited. Just like this COVID thing, you know. You got to wear the mask. You have to be careful, and then you get sick, and then you're helpless. You can't even breathe. You know, where's our independence? You know, it's obviously an illusion. So all because we've artificially separated ourselves from Krishna. That's the source of fear. So the source of fearlessness is to reverse the process. He says, what's the symptoms here? Ishara petasya, you turn away from Krishna, turn your back, and become absorbed in the material energy. Viparyayo, everything is reversed. Instead of being the servant, you're the master. And asmati, you forget everything about your real nature. So this knowledge that we're getting, every time we read Prabhupada's book, study, have a class, this is reminding us of the truth that we've forgotten. This is giving us the actual reality, the truth. So that's the first 2 lines, diagnosing the problem, and then the second 2 lines, giving the solution, the medicine. So first he says, Tanmayato, all of this comes about because of the power of Maya, you know. The Yoga Maya expands as Mahamaya to bewilder us when we ignore Krishna. When then we're suffering life after life. So Tanmayato, Buddha, one has to be intelligent. The intelligent soul. This comes up again and again. Here also, everywhere in Gita and Bhagavatam. Tanmayato Buddha Atma Yoyam, Tanmayato Buddha Abhajetam. One has to worship that very person who you ignored. In other words, turn again to Krishna, which is what all of this Hare Krishna philosophy and practice is all about, turning again to Krishna. And worship. How? Bhakti Aikayesham, with one pointed, sincere devotional service. And very important at the end of this verse, Guru Deva Tatma, and seeing one's Guru as one very self and master and Lord. In other words, that Krishna is coming to you, you know, and giving you the knowledge in a way you can understand through the spiritual master. And Prabhupada is all of our spiritual masters. We should really read that first chapter of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is about gurus, the gurus, the initiating guru and the instructing gurus, and also the Vartma Pradashika gurus. When you're going out and distributing, when you distribute a book, you've got you're a guru as a Vartma Pradashika, one who shows the path, and you're introducing them to the main Shiksha guru of this whole age, Srila Prabhupada, through his books. So that you're Krishna's agent, you're Lord Chaitanya's agent there. The whole parampara is encouraging you, empowering you to, try to find those souls who can be saved. So that's how we should understand that. There's an urgency to it. There's always an urgency, because time is pushing everything to destruction. And this whole world, I mean, it looks like we're entering a very difficult period here. Not just with the COVID, because this is the climate change also. And there's like all kinds of stuff happening, and what to speak of each of us getting older. So there's an urgency, and to give us seriousness about it. That there's people out there who, if we don't go out, if we don't try, they're not going to get a book. There's each day there's people who, depending on each of us, kind of give them a chance at least to step forward. So this knowledge is so essential. Malayadra has finally realized it after 36,000 years. And by the process of devotional service, hopefully it won't take us that long. Of course, you never know. We may have already had 36,000 years of births of cultivating. But in any case, now we have an opportunity to actually act on this understanding. Yes, Krishna is present in my heart as a super soul, as the overseer, but also the giver of knowledge, the giver of intelligence. In other words, the super soul is Krishna. He has desires too. This is the famous analogy, which is also in the Bhagavatam, but is famous for being in the Upanishads, of the bird, two birds in the tree, bodies like a tree. And in each body we have, there's two birds. There's the soul and the super soul. Now in most of the lower bodies, the super soul is just observing and giving the intelligence to act in that particular body. There's no chance that soul can actually turn back to him. But in the human body, there is the chance. Through knowledge, one can really understand, I need to cultivate this awareness of the super soul, of Krishna, and take my cues from him, and what is right and what is good and what should be done. And because, and this is a key element. I remember back in, when was it, 10 years ago, when the revelation came out how the NSA is spying on everyone. They're recording all your phone calls, and your emails. In other words, there's a big eye that's watching everything. And this was a big news. And it's not, it was like, isn't that illegal? I mean, don't they need to, the First Amendment, there's privacy, well, legal or illegal, they're doing it. And why would it be disturbing? Because you don't really have the confidence that these people have your best interests at heart, or even that they know what it is. In other words, all kinds of nefarious things can happen when people know exactly, all your secrets and things, for devotees, it's not that big a deal, because most of you don't have, secrets like that. But people, it's very troubling. And there was even this thing called a Panopticon that we learned about at the time, which was a construct where they had I don't know if they ever built one, they thought a big prison, imagine a big prison, and they had the cells all facing this inner area, and there's this big tower there where the authorities can be looking into every cell and finding what's going on, So as soon as this came out, I was thinking, well, they're talking about, trying to be the super soul, right? To know everything about everything. That's what they want, the NSA, right? But why is it distressing to people? Because you don't have the confidence that these people really have your best interests at heart, do you? Or that maybe the people who build it thought a good idea, but then people who take it over can use it for an evil thing. But the super soul, Krishna, in your heart, he's there and he knows everything, much more than these guys can ever know, in every atom. You can't be omniscient unless you're omnipresent. And the super soul is both, right? He's in every atom, in every heart, and he knows everything, past, present, and future. That's right in the Gita. But luckily, we know that Krishna is Sudadam Sarvabhutanam. He's the most well-wishing, intimate friend of every living entity. In other words, he has nothing to gain from exploiting us or making us suffer. He wants us to rejoin him in his pastimes of love and enjoy like ever, anything forever. That's his goal. That's his desire. But if we're stubborn about it, he'll continue to be the super soul and do that through expansion. So that attitude, it should be taken on by all of us. That we don't have anything to exploit these people for. We're trying to give them the treasure. The perfect example is Srila Prabhupada. He came at great difficulty, risking his life, and continued to give it as it expanded, even beyond his own imagination, what it could do. He tried to, the last breath in that particular body, to give the knowledge and to lead his devotees. And why? Because he was sacrificing for our benefit, for the benefit of the conditioned souls. So that mood, which is there with Krishna, because he doesn't sacrifice, but has absolutely zero exploitative motive, because he already has everything. The one thing he doesn't have is our particular love, and we need to regain that love, our love for him, so that we can regain our position in the spiritual world. So the whole thing is based on caring for others. You read about the Goswamis, you read about how Sanatana Goswami was so beloved of everyone. He would give advice even on marital difficulties and things, So, Dira Janapriyo. He's dear, Priya, to the dearer, of course, to the devotees, but also the adir. So this is the realization of the super soul. And the more that we act in Krishna consciousness and hear and chant and try to understand his philosophy and live by it, the more we'll feel the guidance, we'll feel the empowerment of Krishna through the indwelling super soul to understand this philosophy, to relish Krishna consciousness and give it to others. So that's what I take from this verse. Any comments or questions? Sorry, it's kind of gotten late. All right, I'll end with one. I've modified that. The Bhagavad Gita. Get it, learn it, live it, and give it. That's all we have to do. Actually, Lord Chaitanya also had these little mottos, It says, Bolo Krishna, Bojo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shikhi. Do I have it right there, Ramapati? Bolo Krishna, Bojo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shikhi. So, just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. That was Lord Chaitanya's instruction to Nityananda and Haridas, to what they should tell the people when they go and preaching in Navadvip. So they were successful. And this book distribution and preaching is really just an expansion of that. That's the essence of it. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.